آزادی بیان
言论自由
free speech. Now, this is it's a rather broad question, but I think it's worth talking about. Near the end of this book, you say, as for the satanic verses and that whole story, it was hard to say if it was ending in victory or defeat. And I want to push you on that.
Well, I think it's some of each, you know. I mean, as I said, if you look at the narrow focus of the actual particular battle about this book, that book, the attempt to ban that book, the attempt to intimidate its publishers, the attempt to intimidate its booksellers and translators, and the attempt to murder its author, all those things failed. The book is available by last count in 48 languages, still in print in all of them. And the publishers essentially, give or take, held the line. The translators, even though there was very serious intimidation, and the Japanese translator was actually murdered, the Italian translator was stabbed and left for dead and survived. The Norwegian publisher was shot 3 times in the back. In spite of these things, essentially the publishing community rather admirably held the line. And so did bookstores. Again, with a wobble here or there, but essentially, yes. So, and you know, the author's still here too. Whereas the Ayatollah Khomeini is not. Let's say that. And on the subject of the pen being mightier than the sword, do not mess with novelists. But so that, I think, if you look at the actual small narrative of the events surrounding the Satanic Verses, I think we didn't do so badly, you know. I think we did defend what there was to defend. In the larger frame, I think it's very difficult to argue that we succeeded, because I think it was very frightening to a very large number of people. It made it much harder to get anything published which was even about Islam, let alone mildly critical of Islam, let alone seriously critical of Islam. Books that were actually almost hagiographically adoring of Islamic figures became the targets of attack by people who hadn't read them. It became very, very hard to say anything about Islam.
I think that's right. I mean, so I think there's a tremendous amount of self-censorship.